Okay, so my article was called "The State of Elementary Social Studies Teaching in One Urban District," and basically, in this article, it discussed how testing is affecting the way and how often teachers teach social studies. So there's now so much pressure on testing and the standardized test that one teacher even said that they have to, because they have to test over reading and mathematics, that sometimes they cut out social studies and science. This article quoted a study that tried to determine how much time teachers were using and needed to teach social studies each week. One study said that in grades 1 through 4, classes taught social studies about 2.7 hours per week, but another study said in grades K through 3, 1.9 hours per week were spent teaching social studies, and in grades 4 through 6, 3 hours a week were spent teaching social studies. In this particular study that this article did, they gathered information about teaching of social studies from 172 elementary school teachers, grades K through 5. This was in an urban Southern California school district. These teachers were chosen randomly, and they were also chosen from regular classrooms, no special education classrooms. They cut out preschool and 6th grade, even though they gathered some results from there, because they just wanted it to be K through 5 regular education classrooms. The data showed that the majority of time that teachers spend teaching are subjects that are going to be tested over. So the subjects that are tested by standardized testing, and that's reading, language arts, and math. When they asked these teachers, 48% they asked these teachers how often they spent teaching social studies per week. 48% of teachers taught social studies 1 to 2 times per week. 50% alternated teaching social studies and science throughout the week. And when asked, 69% of teachers were dissatisfied with their teaching of social studies. And when asked why, a lot of them felt that there was no time to teach social studies, and that the tested material needed to be taught first because that was what their students were going to be tested over, and that they needed to learn that before social studies, since there was no standardized testing over that. 29% also said that they felt like teaching social studies was not a school priority, and meaning that the school didn't find it important to teach social studies, so they didn't feel the need to teach social studies in their classroom. This survey also surveyed about methods. So in the primary grades, 34% of teachers used lecture-based methods and taught social studies 1 to 2 times per week. They also rarely used any primary sources, inquiry, or vocab development. It was also reported that over half used worksheets, and the data basically showed that very little time was spent teaching with multimedia lessons, primary sources, and projects. This data to me is really surprising because I had a really good experience with social studies when I was in elementary school. My aunt was actually my 4th grade elementary teacher, and that was when I had the most fond memories of my social studies experience. And I asked her why we did so much in social studies and nowadays kids don't, and she said because when I was in school that year they did standardized testing over social studies so that they taught it more. And social studies was my favorite subject. I remember doing we did a pioneer day. We wrote journals like pilgrims. When we were learning about pilgrims, I made a wampanoag, like when we were learning about Indians, and doing those projects really, I still remember those things, and I don't remember a lot that I learned in elementary school, but I remember those things. So I think that this article kind of showed that, people really do teach to test because that's what their students are being tested over, but I think it shows the importance of how big of an issue this is, and how social studies is being put on a back burner along with science, and how it needs to be brought back. And people are still teaching it, but it needs to be brought back with the same using projects and multimedia lessons and primary sources, and really going all out, doing that pioneer day and the whole pioneer unit where you're a pioneer, you write a journal and all that stuff. That was really fun, and that's the lessons that I remember. And I think it's important that even if students aren't tested over, it's still important for them to learn that. And as teachers and educators, we have to continue to teach them and do our best for them. is hard. I also think, which with 29% of them saying that they felt that teaching social studies wasn't a school priority, I think that it should be a school priority and that every school should make that a priority because it is important. It's a core subject. And even though it's not tested, there still needs to be time made for it. And maybe it needs to be something that is tested. But social studies is important, and this article kind of showed how much of a downfall it's taking and how we need to stand up for that, because I loved learning about social studies and I know I love teaching others about social studies, and so that's something that I definitely want to incorporate in my future classroom. Thank you.